Now, when you look at Warhammer 40,000, there's a lot of evil figures out there. But when you think about the most evil person in Warhammer, do you think of Asdrubal Vecht, Supreme Leader of Kamarog, the Dark Eldar? No. Do you think of Conrad Kurz, the Night Hunter and a local scrotum taker? Not quite. You think of Lorgar. Is it because of Lorgar's belief system and how he did everything wrong? No. It's because he's bald. In fact, most villains in Warhammer are bald. And I believe that the entirety of the Warhammer 40,000 universe could have been prevented if they had just gotten themselves some goddamn keeps. 2 out of 3 men will experience some kind of male pattern baldness before they are 35, and it's not about getting it when you see signs, it is about being a preventative. Lorgar didn't prevent anything, like he didn't prevent his perfect little monarchia city from being burned to the fucking ground and being called a big pussy. Lorgar's a bitch. But if Lorgar had access to 24/7 customer service, a fantastic product that you don't need to go visit a doctor or a pharmacy to do, and you can do all of your hair loss prevention entirely in your own home, I think he would have stayed loyal. Keeps is the leader in hair loss prevention, and it's not just me, someone who uses the product, but there are tons of reviews on it on YouTube as well, from also people who are not sponsored. If you want a little bit more of a unbiased review, they also agree it's a fantastic option. It's not just about getting your hair back, it's about making sure it never leaves in the first place. It's about prevention, because then maybe you wouldn't have joined Chaos.
Keeps does not guarantee you will not be corrupted by Chaos, tortured by the Inquisition, and subsequently executed for heresy.
Which is really not something that I have any room to talk about, as Night Lords or my Lorgar's a bitch. So go ahead and check out the description and go to keeps.com/Bricky for 50% off your first order while the deal lasts. Thank you very much for sponsoring this video, and let's talk about bald chaos men. Hello everybody, my name is Bricky, currently staring down a Dimicarian, wondering where it all went wrong. Warhammer, I like it. It's pretty cool. Poggers, based, all those words. I recently attended a tournament known as LVO, the Las Vegas Open. It is the largest Warhammer tournament in the world, or at least I think it is. If it's not, then I'm not changing this title. But all the big players were there, all the major competitive groups, myself even, and Dice Check all went down and decided to try our hand in the biggest tournament in the US and world. We'll figure that one out soon. During a stream of mine after I came back, many people were asking me how I did, how did I perform, and why not let you know right here, right now, and tell you not just how I did, but how the event was as a whole. What's it like attending a 40k tournament? And if you're planning on attending one yourself, what things do you need to make sure you bring and think about when you're there? So that's what this video is about. It's a story, not a game review or an essay like I normally do, but a story and a little bit of advice for you if you ever do attend a Warhammer tournament yourself. So sit down, get some food, let's chat about LVO. Now, LVO is held at the Rio. The Rio isn't a terrible hotel. It's not a Days Inn or anything like that, but the Rio as a hotel for Warhammer sucks massive ass. If you're gonna go to Vegas, if you're gonna hold the largest 40k tournament in the world, don't hold it at the Rio. The hotel had half of its restaurants closed down. So when it came to food, we had 3 options. You had a smash burger, and this is a gaming convention, so a good 30-person line at that thing. You had the $11 cheeseburgers wrapped in tinfoil that you see at the outside of every convention hall, and you had a Starbucks with a, and I am not exaggerating here, 50+ person line going all the way out to the slots. The Rio is also not located on the strip. So if you wanted to go out on the strip and get some food out there, you would have to either Uber, taxi, or drive yourself, which has its own myriad of problems, especially when lunch between game 1 and 2 is only 45 minutes long. Also, just the beds suck, man. I don't know what it was, but my back pain was insane. The beds are shit. They're just shit. Hell, in order to actually have breakfast, I had to Uber Eats food to the hotel because nothing was working. It's trash. Hold it somewhere else next time, please.
Hear ye, noble Well, lords and ladies, the tourney is about to begin.
So how's a Warhammer tournament held? Well, it's in an enormous room covered in tables, listed from table 1 all the way to, I think it went to 300 or something this time around, and is played over 6 games. About a week or two before, you go ahead and put your list in, have it finalized and approved. Also, you generally send pictures of any conversion models and stuff to make sure they're approved. Also, you don't want to be modeling for advantage and that kind of thing. And the games are always matched up with people who are a similar win-loss rate as yourself. So if you won your first game, you'll find another guy who won his first game. If you're 2-3 and you have your last game, you'll find another guy who's also 2-3, etc. If you're 5-0, you're fighting people who are 5-0. It's very much in heats, so to speak, where you always play all 6 games. No matter your score, no matter how well or how bad you're doing, you play 6 games. The only people who play more than 6 games are the top 8 players who play an additional, I think, 3 right after that. The fuck? I had a nut in my mouth. Don't meme that.
Bird up.
Then comes game day, Friday in this case, and you roll up at around 9:30 a.m. or something. You get paired up with a table and an opponent on the app, and then you go to the table, you meet the person, shake their hand, and then you start deploying and setting up. All of the terrain and all of the missions are all given to you in a packet beforehand, so you know what terrain is given to what person and also which mission you are playing. And from there, it's a classic game of 40k. You pick your secondaries, you do your deployment, you do your roll-offs, all that fun jazz. However, you have exactly 3 hours to complete your game. Not always, but sometimes depending on the army, you know, if you're rolling up to Nid Swarm or Guard, you might bring out a chess clock. And the person who runs out of time on the chess clock will therefore basically not be able to do anything for the rest of the game, which basically means they auto lose. So with the 3 hours, it's good to be pretty quick on your games. After the first 3 hours, you got a 45-minute lunch break in which you eat just trash normally, and then you have the next game, then about another 30-minute break, then the final game, and then that's your 3 games for the day. You go eat some dinner, or you go back to your hotel room with your legs just absolutely aching after standing for over 10 hours, give or take, and then next day comes the next 3 games, and you're good.
Found me a thing. Time to get more things.
Just take the thing. He'll be at this for a while.
So if you're rolling up to your first tournament, and I guess this advice could be handy for just playing 40k in general, what are some things you should really be bringing? Definitely bring a good amount of dice. You never want to use your opponent's dice ever. You want to make sure you have at least 50, I'd say, just because depending on custodians to guard what army you're playing, make sure you have enough. Also, make sure you have a dice tray you bring. Not only is that nice because I generally have a rule with my opponents where if it doesn't land in the tray, it doesn't count, so you always know exactly what counts and what's cocked, so to speak, but it's also nice that the opponent can see exactly where you're rolling, so you're not, you know, causing any problems, and neither of you are being a little bit, dishonest with your rolls. You know, you don't want to be rolling plague weapons all incorrectly and stuff. Make sure you bring your codex, or at least some printed rules of all the major data sheets you have, because I brought Chaos Space Marines and the 8th edition codex for CSM is so outdated. I didn't even bring that codex, but I had some printouts and stuff to make sure my opponent knew what was going on, or at least have your apps ready, either the Warhammer app, Battlescribe, or Wahapedia. Make sure they're always there, tabs open on your phone. You want to reduce the looking up part as much as you can. And then of course, you know, don't forget a fucking tape measure. People do that all the time. And bring objective markers in case your opponent doesn't have any. Now these are all obvious things, right? What about stuff I really highly recommend you do? Things you might not think about. Good food. Good, healthy greens and carbs. This is not a time for monsters and pizza. You are going to regret it. Eggs, rice, vegetables. Food that gives you energy. Food that's good for you. You are going to be standing around, bending over, moving a ton for 10 hours for 2 days in a row. Not to mention the amount of thinking you're gonna have to do. Trust me, eat good food. A fuckload of water. I'm talking multiple bottles or a 64-ounce jug. Just water. If you survive only on coffee and energy drinks, you're gonna regret that. And I mean, I drink plenty of coffee and I generally do have coffee with me, but with lots of water as well. A non-residue producing snack, as in not Cheetos or Doritos, but like grapes, apple slices, something that's gonna give you a good amount of energy and it won't leave some crap on the board or the models. Good shoes. Oh my God. Honestly, weightlifting shoes are pretty stellar. I wore some of those Nobles, I believe, and I thought those were pretty great. But having good shoes is paramount. Not only that, but some players even bring a yoga mat to roll out and stand on their side of the table. I've tried that out before. I recommend it. It's very handy. Lastly, a cart. Carrying your minis in a big old bag of foam is great, but when you have to put them back into the bag of foam, it's incredibly annoying. It's a huge pain in the ass, and most importantly, it's tiring. It's so much easier to have this little Amazon cart where you can hold everything, your objective markers, your dice tray, your codex, your data sheets, and all your minis at the same time, and you can just roll around to your next game multiple times. It'll save you time, it'll save you energy, and it'll save you your pain back. There are probably many things I forgot about, and if you have any other ideas, go ahead and leave them in the comments for me to look at, because as far as I'm concerned, these are the major points I can think of.
Yeah, take it away, Ernie. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
So, you got all your stuff. It's time for playing. What things do you think about when you're playing? Having a good time is obvious. This is one that everyone needs to say despite it being very obvious. You are playing with toy soldiers. You are playing with army men and action figures. This is not like Third World War. It is little figures. Don't take it too seriously. An emphasis on saying what you're doing is very appreciated. Playing by intent is generally something that many people try to go by, but often some minor things might occur where a model might get bumped accidentally or a terrain piece might be adjusted accidentally. Saying, hey, I'm moving these minis into this cover, but they're not in it, they're still obscured. That kind of stuff is really handy because maybe they get bumped and then they put a toe on the cover, allowing them to be shot. Or certain things like I'm placing my models on the top of this ruin, even though they're actually on the bottom. It's just a pain in the ass to try to fit them down there. That kind of stuff, most people don't care. And if you do care about that kind of stuff, well, you're kind of an asshole. Now, if I'm trying to shove the Triumph of St. Catherine underneath there when it literally can't fit, that's different. But small things that just make it easier on both players and reduce the amount of time you take going back and forth, everyone should let you do that. And if they don't, well, you found yourself a very unfortunate Warhammer player. There's a good chance he's at a tournament because he can't find people to play with on his own time. Of course, still play your best. You know, you're at a tournament, you're going hard, you're gonna play hard, but you know, be kind about it. Also, playing by intent and saying what you're doing is really helpful in case you make any mistakes. I brought down some Chaos Space Marines one time and I was gonna warp time them, and I stated that, and my opponent said, oh no, you actually can't warp time stuff from reserves. That's not in the warp time rules, that's in the core rulebook. It's helpful because then you might not make a really damning mistake, thinking you could do something, then realizing you can't, and then your models are stuck there. It prevents a feels bad man, like a Auspex scan, for example, where you can shoot a unit from reserves. You might say, hey, I can Auspex scan you if you come down over there and shoot your people up. You know, just a little bit of a, hey, I have this, just a warning. This one might be kind of random, but colored flashcards are really nice. When I played Sisters of Battle my prior tournament, I was running Sacred Rose, and Sacred Rose had so many rules involving miracle dice. I had multiple Blessings of the Faithful, I had the Triumph of St. Catherine, Beacon of Faith, etc. And there were so many rules that I just kind of forgot sometimes when I had used them. Some were only per turn, some were per phase, some were per battle round. And having little flashcards that I could flip over and say that I already did them or didn't was really handy. It keeps me accountable. When it comes to things like takebacks, I generally think it's acceptable to allow your opponent to take back certain things, so long as, one, you're not, you know, going for the gold. You know, this is different on the top 5 tables, but I don't think anyone watching this is going to the top 5 table, so don't worry about it. But often if a person was in the shooting phase, they were shooting stuff at me and they said, oh crap, I forgot to mention I want to do rod over here. And I'd say, ah, yeah, whatever, just do the rod over there. I knew that was their intention. They were obviously there to do rod, whatever. Now, if they fire their Hive Guard twice and said, oh crap, I meant to do raw with my Hive Guard, can I take that all back? I'll say, no. A great example of this, though, is in my 4th game, I made a grave error where I didn't actually bring in my Terminators. I just completely forgot they were in Deep Strike. And it was past turn 3, and I asked my opponent, hey, can I like just bring them in on my board edge on this side just to have them there so I can do rod later on? And he said, yeah, whatever. This segues me into my final point. Warhammer, especially competitive Warhammer, is unbalanced, weird, and completely janky. This is a tournament. People are trying to win. This will lead to bringing in some undesirables. The people who interrupt you all the time, the people who constantly spit as they're speaking, the people who handle your models without you giving them permission to do so, the people who don't know what deodorant is, the people who are constantly that guy. Anyone who's played Magic knows this, especially Magic. When you're at a tournament, you'll get those people. Now, normally the more egregious examples of this are a bit higher up on the tables, so luckily if you're someone like me who plays just kind of semi-competitively, you most likely won't run into anyone like this too often, but you will run into one every so often. There's not really a way to deal with this, except make sure that you put your foot down when you know you're right about something and don't let them try to bully you out of certain stuff, and just try to get the game over with. Luckily for me, however, I didn't have to deal with this my time around. I had 6 fantastic opponents. So speaking of, let's talk about my games.
Let's get ready to rumble!
I brought my Night Lords to the tournament, and at the time of recording this video, they are arguably a top 3 worst armies in the game right now. The only ones that really competed for them were the old Tau and the old Gene Stealer codexes, which have both been changed. Now it's them and like guard. But I was really happy with my paint jobs. I was super excited with my kit bashes, so I wanted to roll up with my Night Lords and go 1-5. I went 2-4. And to me, that's a huge win. My list was a Chaos Lord with jump pack, kind of as a glass cannon, a Lord Discordant, a Master of Possession, a squad of 30 cultists, 3 squad of CSM with various special weapons, 2 squads of Terminators, Lightning Claws in one, Chain Fists on the other, 2 squads of Raptors, squad of Warp Talons, 3 Obliterators, a Venom Crawler, and a Mauler Fiend. If I didn't forget anything, no, I did not. It's a very fluffy list. It's a very Night Lordsy list. You know, the bunch of jetpack units, not only the Terminators too, which I threw lion shoulder pads on because that's what the Atramentar used, the Nostroman lion, just, I like my Night Lords. But the main thing was going really hard into the Icon of Excess, which is definitely the best legs this army has, making the Deaths of the False Emperor exploding 6s turn into exploding 5s, and can be +1s to make it exploding 4s, either through Prescience, the Prey on the Weak stratagem, or From the Night. Game 1 was against Necrons, great guy named Robin. He was running the classic Necron list, Eternal Expansionist, and the one that gives you the pregame move, or the pregame move and OBSEC one. We're talking melee heavy, 10 Wraiths, 10 Lich Guards, Scorpec Destroyers, a Nightbringer, tons of Immortals, even Onruk here, the Traveler, was around. He got first turn and it didn't quite go the way he hoped. He veiled the darkness some Scorpecs in the back line to kill a Mauler Fiend, and then charged some Raptors with some Wraiths. I actually spent 4 CP to interrupt his Wraiths, and I killed 2 of them, and they unfortunately could not kill my Mauler Fiend, in which then turned around and wiped all 4 Scorpec Destroyers. I did more damage to him on his turn 1 than he did to me. And from there, I just kind of slowly pushed. He put up quite a fight for a while. A lot of that melee prowess and the Technomancer reviving everything. Not to mention, because I'm in an 8th edition army, Necrons were pretty tanky when fighting me specifically. But eventually, clogging up his Nightbringer with 30 cultists and really just getting into his back line with a bunch of deep strike, there wasn't much more he could do. And at that point, the game was basically over just through an objective measure. So first game was over, 91-68. Actually a pretty close game, all things considered. Game 2 was against a gentleman named Ed, and when I saw Tyranids and I saw Leviathan, I got very scared. And then I looked at the list a little bit more and realized, oh, these are Nids. 150 bodies, tons of Termagants, even Hormagons, squads of Gene Stealers, a Lictor, because of course, you had the 6 Hive Guard, obviously. The Swarm Lord was there too, even some Sky Slasher swarms. This was a Nid list, and it was a fun list, because no matter what, even though I was losing, because guess what, he got turn 1, guess what, Hive Guard exists, and they are the most unfun thing in this game, but despite that all, I was ripping through 20-30 models a turn, and it was a blast. Unfortunately, him getting turn 1, him just constantly dumping Hive Guard into me, it was too much that I could handle. Though after some time, I was really breaking through his ranks and I was dealing a lot of damage. If this game would go to turn 10, I would have won by killing all of his units because he was running out of steam, but it was too late at that point. I lost that game 64-92. Actually a pretty close game, all things considered, and I was really putting the hurt on later, but those Termagants with those Devourers and those Hive Guard, he also said, yeah, Hive Guard, bit cringe in it, and that was good. I got a good in it from him. That was fun. Game 3 was against this absolute mad lad. I saw he was playing Tau, pre-Codex Tau. And then, but I was wondering where the hell all of his points were. There's no Riptides in there. I mean, he had some Devilfish and some Broadsides, but where were his points? Oh, he had a super heavy detachment, non-auxiliary one. He rolled up to the table with 3 Storm Surges. 3 Storm Surges at LVO. What a Chad. 3 broadsides, 2 Devilfish, some infantry, and a couple commanders. That was his entire list. And I mean, pre-Codex Storm Surge is mostly ass. They could put in some hurt, but they're mostly ass. New Storm Surges as well, oh god. But he was 1-1 like me, so something was working. The dice, however, said he wasn't gonna make it. I got first turn, moved my lord up, warp time my lord as well, charged him, and I got into combat with him with my Raptor lord, my jetpack guy. I didn't explain what makes this guy so special, because he needs a name. I don't know what to call him, but he needs a fucking name. The Chaos Lord on jump pack rolls up with 5 attacks, 4 base, 1 for Hateful Assault. I gave him a relic lightning claw called the Rapacious Talons. They are a Slanesh themed dual pair of lightning claws with 2 damage. What you do is you roll a dice beforehand, and as long as you don't roll a 1, you get that many more attacks. Now I rolled a 6. So I rolled up with 11 attacks and spent 1 CP for Prey on the Weak to give me +1 to hit because he had a lower leadership than me. So I was hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, with 5 ups generating more hits. I had 11 attacks. And I think I ended with like 16 or 17. Then I spent a CP for Veterans of the Long War, which gives me +1 to wounds. Now I have a warlord trait called the Flames of Spite that allows me to do mortal wounds on a wound roll of 6+. Of 6+, not unmodified. So I was then doing mortal wounds on 5+, which means I was also wounding him on 4s, and because these are lightning claws, they re-roll all failed wounds. I sunk about 13 wounds onto him, with 8 of them being mortal wounds. He took his 4-up invul save, failed about 6 or 7, I don't quite remember how many, taking 12 or 14 damage, plus 8 mortal wounds. The Storm Surge has 20 HP, and in 1 round of combat, my Chaos Lord on jump pack one-shot a Storm Surge. And then in his turn, because Night Lords never stop when they're being mean, I killed all 3 broadsides, and then when it was my turn, I rolled for 3 damage on my obliterators and one-shot another Storm Surge. And then my Raptor Lord killed a commander. And at that point, I mean, that was it. It was some prime bullying. This guy's name was Dal or Dal, and he came up with an entire diorama of his models. He even has an Instagram. I'll go ahead and link it in the description and show it off, because he was really fun opponent. Even turn 2, he was sitting there thinking, you know, I don't like being that guy who says the game is over, but I think this one might be over. Our game ended in like an hour and 10 minutes. I won 97-12. He was a really cool guy. And honestly, he had a diorama of Tau with him. He won in the drip and the fashion game, and if any of us have played MMOs, we both know drip and fashion is the only thing you need to win in. So I end day 1, 2-1. Day 2 comes around. First game, I'm fighting Chaos Space Marines. Man's name was Chris, and he was running Emperor's Children with a bunch of Terminators, and then Iron Warriors with a bunch of Decimators, Obliterators, and a Brass Scorpion. Now, the Brass Scorpion, I think, has a bit more legs than most people. Bit more legs. Than most people honestly think, so long as you give it the proper Iron Warrior buffs. The Demon Forge strat, the 6's explode ability, and all of the regen it can get. If I was playing maybe Sisters, I bet I could have taken it down, you know, just drown it in Melta and Mortal Wounds, but I was not. And despite me doing surprisingly well, even charging a Discord Lord into the Brass Scorpion and bringing it to half bracket, and then my Jump Lord bringing it to 6 wounds, I wasn't quite able to take him out. Dropping everything down, bringing in all my big guns. Once I had to deal with his Terminators and the Decimators, which I fucking hate Decimators with the Soul Burner so much. I just ran out of steam. He had too much stuff. I couldn't deal with the Scorpion. And by that point, there was nothing else I could do. He was a really good player though, and he also taught me a lot about CSM I didn't know, which I thoroughly appreciated. That Scorpion is something else, but I mean, both of us were 2-1 CSM players. We were just stoked to fight each other. That game ended 41-83 in his favor. Pretty great game though. He actually even made a Reddit post about it, which I will also link in the description if you want to read all about it. Game 5 was the game I enjoyed the least. Not due to my opponent. His name was Bobby. Bobby was a bro. But I looked at the thing I was fighting and I saw Crusher Stampede. I really don't like Crusher Stampede. My buddy Mark had to fight 3 games of Crusher Stampede over LVO, and every time he wanted to die. I'm glad Nids have a decent build here with Crusher Stampede, but it's some of the most unfun jank shit to fight. Double shooting Hive Guard, re-rolling their hits, exploding 6s, re-rolling damage, combining that with a Demicarium, doing 6 mortal wounds to whatever it wants to touch, with a 4-up invul, 5-up feel no pain, extra attacks, and 28-inch move. At least I knew that my man Bobby was a Nids fan before that. All of his Nids were made like xenomorphs with the head and the eggs on the base and everything. It was really dope, but fuck Crusher Stampede. He got turn 1, he double shot his Hive Guard, and then he charged his Demicarian, killed my Mauler Fiend, Venom Crawler, 2 squads of CSM. My cultists were dying. My Terminators didn't get their charges off. There was nothing else I could do. But he was a bro. He was the guy I left my Terminators out on, and he let me bring them back in so I can do my rod because he was really nice about it. And by then I was kind of panicked on what the hell to do, and I just forgot things. 40-84. Fine game. And I mean, those minis were really cool looking. He even brought a Trigon Prime. Pretty cool looking model that one is, the Trigon Prime. Really, really dope. Man, fuck Crusher Stampedes. My last game was against a gentleman named Thomas, and Thomas, oh, that man lives, breathes Iron Hands. You know, you see Iron Hands, you might think a little bit of meta chasing there, but no, this guy, he had names for all of his dreadnoughts. They had that fist on all of the pauldrons. He was running 2 Leviathan dreadnoughts, 2 Contemptor dreadnoughts, 3 land speeders, some Van Vets. This guy was an Iron Hands player. And the both of us were 2 and 3. We were tired as hell. We were ready for just a fun ass game. And honestly, he was one of my favorite games, despite the fact that I got schmacked. I got first turn, did some plink damage, charged some things. On my second turn, I was able to actually get some good damage in, but I left everything way too exposed. On his second turn, he killed everything. The dreadnoughts just opened up and mulched my entire army. I had maybe 3 units left at the end of turn 2. Some reserves, sure, but I didn't have the steam after that. And I got slaughtered, like 95-22 or something. It was my worst defeat of them all score-wise, but it didn't feel that bad because I knew it was my fault and it was the last game. I already got my 2 wins. I was fine. Thomas was a super dope opponent. He had a great looking army. He really seemed like he loved his Iron Hands, and that made it a lot more fun because it was a person passionate about their army versus a person passionate about their army, and it was just a great time. Those were my 6 games. Despite Crusher Stampede, I loved them all. They were a ton of fun. I had a huge blast, and LVO, despite my annoyances with the hotel and everything, it was a really good time. If I were you, if you have a local RTT Road Trader tournament or a local GT that's kind of a smaller scale, I would recommend joining. You will play bad. I always play bad. My first tournament, I got last place, literally last, but I had a really good time and I've only gotten better. My second tournament, I went 4-2 with a Sacred Rose Miracle Dice base sisters list. Not even like a Argent Shroud Rhino spam thing. No, like its own little idea there. But LVO was wonderful. If I had to change anything about my list, I had a lot of, you know, models that just were modeled the way they were because they came out of a Start Collecting box or something. So I had plasma guns and crap like that. I would take the 2 barebone CSM and then 3 squads of 10 cultists instead of 1 of 30. I'd drop out some special weapons on my Terminators. And then with the new points changes, I can actually add a Contemptor Dreadnought. Not one with the Volkite because I hate Volkite, but probably one with the Chain Fist, maybe like the grav gun, the missile launcher, like the plasma or something, because I think that's kind of how I would adjust my list at the end of the day. Really enjoyed myself. I would highly recommend some of you try attending it next year, and hopefully it's at a better fucking hotel. Thank you for listening to this video, listening to this story. Of course, if you want to see more content Warhammer related, if you want to do more actual games and tabletop, check out Dice Check. I play it a lot. It's also my buddy Matt who runs it. We have lots of great games there, and it's honestly, I think, a much more casual but like semi-competitive feel to it, so I'd recommend there. And if you want to know more 40k lore style, check out Adeptus Ridiculous that I run with my co-hosts DK and Shy, where we discuss all of the craziness and news about Warhammer for new people in a much more condensed and memey format. And with that, a huge thank you to all of my patrons, a huge thank you to all of my YouTube members, and to all of you for watching this. If you'd like to pick up some Bricky merchandise, please do at orchidate.com or in the description. It's all ran by me and a little group of employees, and you know, we're small, but we're enjoying ourselves. It's good. Also, if you want to buy dice, we have dice there too. But now, quick questions from my patronage before we end this. While the Left 4 Dead 2 competitive is up in the air, let me ask: Team Fortress 2 Highlander 9v9 tournament. Everyone wants to be a different class on a team. That sounds super fun. Who are some YouTubers that initially inspired your content? I know that nowadays you just make your own stuff, but how did you know what direction you want to take originally? Well, I've been jumping around the place a million different ways with my content, from daily stuff to guides on YouTube thing, like the old League of Legends crap. But right now, where I'm at right now, I was mostly inspired by Mandalore Gaming, Nakey Jakey, and Skillup. Those are the three. Oh, and Racervic. Racervic, those are the big four. I think that Mandalore had a really good way of formatting his videos. Same with Racevic, but he also had a really good way of script writing and how he formulated his talking, his speeches, his scripts, whatever. And I wanted to combine that with physical motions and being able to be animated and having a green screen. And that's where I got the idea from Nakey Jakey. Though he's also does better script writing than me, but I think combining a little bit of all of them gave me my own sense of identity, and I feel like I have my own thing now, so it feels damn good. All right, I will see you all soon for video. Bye.
Come on. Obviously, you're a skater.